I am very much looking forward to an interview with Jonathan Joosten and Martin Ayub. It's about pinball. They're old friends, and I think it's going to be a very fun time.
At last, the Steve Ritchie interview.
Hi, my name is Jonathan Joosten. I'm the editor of Pinball Magazine, and I'm here with...
I'm Martin Ayub, and I'm the editor of Pinball News, and we're here for this very special bonus podcast in which we get to speak, at long last, with Mr. Steve Ritchie.
And for those not in the know, Steve Ritchie is a legendary pinball designer, having designed games from the late 70s, I would say, starting at Atari, then moving to Williams, doing hit games like Flash, Black Knight, Terminator 2, Tomcat,
Star Trek
F-14.
Next Gen.
Right, the list goes on and on
does.
and on. Yes, and he worked for Stern. He did quite a few games for Stern. Terminator 3 comes to mind, World Poker Tour, Spider-Man, of course, AC/DC, Star Trek, Star Wars, and most recently, the latest game that came out from him at Stern was Led Zeppelin. Which is a game that we'll be discussing as well in this interview.
Plenty to talk about there.
Yeah, and so the interesting thing is, as you might know, Steve Ritchie is currently working for Jersey Jack Pinball. We were informed by Steve himself up front that he would be leaving Stern and joining Jersey Jack Pinball. And ever since, both Steve and us, so to speak, have been looking to get into to get together and do an interview. And we met 2 weeks ago at the Texas Pinball Festival, and that's where we basically finally set up the interview that you are about to listen to.
Yes, and I think it's that time delay, the 8 months that he's been at Jersey Jack, helps our interview because we're able to give that perspective on his experiences of working there now, rather than having just joined them as it would have been back in August. So he can and will, I'm sure, tell us about how it is working at Jersey Jack, how it compares to his previous experiences, and what plans he has.
Right. Yeah, I think it turned out to be a great interview. Obviously, we're recording this after the fact that we already talked to Steve, so we know what's been discussed. And, well, I suggest we don't let you wait any longer. And
let's hear from the man himself.
Exactly, yeah.
Yep, so over to Steve.
August of last year, you joined Jersey Jack Pinball.
I did.
How did that happen? Can you talk to us about that?
Well, I started talking to Leonard Abbess and his family and Brett, and just formed a relationship. I was looking to get out of Stern, and I thought that Jersey Jack was a very good opportunity to make games the way I like to make them. I know it sounds odd, but that's how it happened, pretty much. We met for a couple of months, and there was another period in time in the past, like 5 years ago or 6 years ago, we tried that also. But we'll get into that later. Anyway, my relationship with Leonard and Brett is great. I report to Leonard, and it's a nice connection, and he's a great guy. He's an incredible person. He's like so easy to talk to and get along with, and very down to earth.
Right. So how long have you known Leonard and Brett?
I think it's about 6 years by now, 6.5 years, something like that. The first time that I tried to work with them, I ended up getting cold feet, and I met someone else that I didn't think it would work out. Right.
Okay. So that was around the time that they first became investors in Jersey Jack Pinball, I guess.
Yeah. I'm not positive about when that happened. I haven't paid attention. I was busy with Nose to the Grindstone at Stern.
Sure. But so when you spoke to Leonard this most recent time and worked out a deal to join Jersey Jack Pinball, what did they want you to do? What do they want you to bring to the company?
They expect good game designs. I'm helping any way I can to bring my knowledge to bear here, and there aren't many people here that have, my experience, and so I'm just helping wherever I can, and that's one of the requirements. I am, the first and foremost is a game design, and whatever follows that.
Right. So would you say you're like a mentor for Eric and Mark Seiden?
To some degree, yes, because but they've taught me stuff too. Mark has been like an apprentice to me. I have helped him start a design, but now he's on his own design, and he's doing very well. Eric is extremely intelligent and very educated. There are things that he could never have possibly learned, unless somebody told him from the old days at Williams or at Stern. So I'm helping him with that. He's helping me with other things, parts, and I will shortly be learning how to cut parts with a laser cutter and, sort of do my own stuff. I'm probably never going to be as good as he is at that, but that's okay. I just want to learn and try.
That's great. Now, we wanted to interview you originally when you first joined Jersey Jack, but it's good now that we can do it because you've had the experience of being there for, quite a few months. So right. with that knowledge, how would you sort of compare the way games are designed and built at Jersey Jack compared to at Williams and also at Stern?
It's more like Williams than Stern. We have a lot more creative freedom here than at Stern, and we have a larger bill of materials, and so immediately that's inviting to me. I just I don't have to take things out of games right now, and I'm not going to be extremely extravagant with what goes into a game, but we want to make money, but I also want the game to be complete. And some of my games at Stern were not complete. That was not to my liking.
And as far as the people you're working with and design teams, obviously when you were at Williams, there were each game had its own design team, and presumably the same when you're at Stern. But Jersey Jack very much has a sort of all hands to the pump, everybody works on every game. In sequence type of attitude at the moment. Is that something which is manageable going forward?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely have teams now. I have team of people and they'll be working. I mean, they do other things while I'm making a drawing. They help wherever they can. But once I get a drawing and my whitewood built up, we will begin, in earnest to make the game happen.
So do you have your own mechanical engineer, your own software designer?
I do. I have my own mechanical engineer, and I have 3 programmers that will, build the game when the time comes. So I do have a team, and it's good. And it took a while to make that happen, but it happened.
Are you already in the position to talk about at what stage you are with your first design for Jersey Jack Pinball, or is that off limits?
No, I can tell you, I built the first whitewood. I mean, I didn't build it. It was cut here. Inserts have been installed, and it's ready to be built up. The next thing we're going to do is varnish the playfield. I'm going to do that with a guy named Dan Lachek. He may be doing it himself. I don't know, but it'll happen any day, and then we can start amassing parts and building it up.
So, from my understanding, does that mean that you're these days as a designer more doing the CAD work, so to speak? A playfield will be cut and someone else is building it up, or are you still building the playfield once it's ready to be built up yourself?
No, I always help build the playfield, usually with a guy in a lab. We put it together, scrounge parts up, because and wait for parts to come in that have to be made outside. I never do it alone. I always do it with someone else, and sometimes two people. So that's going to be. I'm excited about that. It's fun. It's like normally I have like an 85% yield when I finish the first drawing, something like that, which means that I'll have to fix 15% of the game or change it. What I do is I build up the whitewood. And as soon as it's hot and all the solenoids and everything work, I don't care about lights at this point. As soon as I make it work and play it, as soon as I find problems, 1 or 2 days later, I will begin ripping into it to fix it and change whatever doesn't work. And that's kind of shocking for some people, and then I'll begin a new whitewood and transfer the parts that I can use from that game to the next whitewood. It's not a very expensive process here.
It might be a bit of an odd question to ask, but are you enjoying yourself right now better than you were at Stern or Williams?
Actually, I'm enjoying myself much more here. This is the best company I ever worked for. As far as the people go, and, everybody from Leonard on down they're good people, and we just get along, and I'm going to do everything I can to make Jersey Jack successful. Comes from the heart. These people are great.
Well, you've certainly got some experience of building up companies and making them highly successful. If we go all the way back to when you first started working for Stern and did the Spider-Man game, which was a huge success, and I don't know if it was the biggest seller, but must be one of the biggest sellers that they ever had. That was back when you were Steve Ritchie Productions and you were on contract to Stern. How was that different from as being a contractor to actually being an employee? Was it easier? Was it harder? Or was it basically the same?
What I liked about it was I could live in California and work at home for 2 or 3 weeks, and then I would come to Stern for 2 or 3 weeks. It meant a lot of travel, but it worked great. I mean, I guess I did that for like 6 years. And then, in 2008, I got fired.
Do you want to tell us about what happened then?
I just got a call one day in 2008, I think it was October, and at home in Illinois. And I found out that myself and most of the people at Stern were fired. I think the company was about to die. I know why, but I'm not going to speak about it. It was a sad time. I was out of work for 28 months.
And a tough time for you. You ended up selling an awful lot of your own personal games and memorabilia. I
did. I had to because, I have a wife to take care of. It's like, also, when 2008 hit, I owned a house worth about, in 2007, it was worth $957,000. And boy, do I wish I would have sold it. I ended up selling it for about $30,000 more than what I paid for it. So I walked away with not much. So that really affected everything. Burned off my savings, whatever. It was a sad time.
It was, but I have to say, you were sort of at the forefront, really, I think, of developing add-ons and mods for games with the side rails and the various extra parts that you were selling for your games through your company at that time and through your web store.
Right, I did some manufacturing, but I did what I could. Nobody in California wanted a person that was 59 or 60 years old. It was just like, I could not even find a job as a UPS driver. But one of the reasons was I was very far from like a major city, 50 miles away. And that was a problem. But I went to a few interviews, and I could have worked for like a slot machine company. I looked for work there also, but they didn't hire me. And I don't know. It was a bad time. We need to talk about something else.
Yeah, well, let's talk about the happier times of when you were rehired and came back to make the amazing AC/DC.
Yeah, it was a great time. That's Dave Peterson had come to Stern, and he had a much more global view than Gary. And he said to me, "Make the game you want to make." That kind of changed over the years, but at that time, there was a decent bill of materials to work with. Lyman and I were both, hot to make it happen, and we did our best work. And we also did a very important thing that everybody should do. Not all designers do it. Some designers just go, "I'm going to make a game, and when I'm done drawing it, I'll pass it on to programmers." But I think it's much better when, like, if Lyman and I would sit down and talk about the whole playfield and all the features we wanted to have on it and how it tied into the songs and, music and just an ambiance, that we want to develop. And it was a lot of fun. And it was also, it turned out to be a very good game and Stern's bestseller.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was a sort of a working practice, I guess, which you've wanted to continue. Being so closely involved with the software developer, and I guess the mechanical engineer as well, right from the very start.
Right. It's a much better way to do it. That's how I'm doing it here. I have them in my office. They're looking at my drawing, and we are talking about things, a few times a week.
You mentioned on AC/DC you could basically make the game that you wanted to make. Was AC/DC your first pick for a license when you came back?
Yeah, I mean, it was the first game that I did when I came back. Yes.
Right, but Was the theme AC/DC? Was it like, if I can do anything I want to do AC/DC, or was this one of the options that you had to choose from?
It was meant to be AC/DC from the very beginning. Gary Stern is very into rock and roll. It's like, we've had some good times at concerts and stuff, and he loves AC/DC. So we went to New York to get the license from his manager, and it was like, the only rule was don't include or bring up or use the reference to Bon Scott, who's been dead for like 35 years. It's like, I can't believe that, that people still complain about Brian, because he's a great vocalist. I mean, he was then. I don't know about now. I think he's retired, but, he's done a great job. So I love that was the only thing, and they gave us like a hard drive filled with every picture probably taken, official photograph and all this other stuff. It was great material, and they didn't really, they looked at our playfield, but they just approved everything.
Well, that must be a nice experience to have, and probably not one that's repeated too many times when dealing with live visuals.
The only other one that compared to that is Terminator 2 with going to meet James Cameron. Anyway, we went to Lightstorm Productions for T2, and we were building a video game at the same time at Williams. And so we got daily videos. Whatever they shot the day before, we would get the next day on cassettes, and just all kinds of stuff. They loaned us the chip. They loaned us the Terminator arm inside a glass tube and skulls. We had to give them back, but it was just amazing the access that we had. And
but that license was one of the last ones where you were bringing out a movie-based pinball, or a pinball company was bringing out a movie-based pinball to tie in with the launch of the movie.
That's right. We were in the theaters with the games on the day it opened, which was July the 4th, 1993, maybe. Not positive of the year.
92, I think.
Yeah, 92. But we were in the theaters with machines, even at the grand opening, I guess they call it.
Does that put an awful lot of pressure on you to make sure the game is ready in time for that?
Yeah, but it's good pressure. It's good pressure because you got to rock and roll. You have to stay busy and make it happen. And everybody in the on the team knew that, and it was fun. Just a lot of fun.
Now, obviously, you've had to deal with. I mean, that was a great license, and you've done some great licenses since, including AC/DC and Spider-Man. But you also had to deal with some, shall we say, less great licenses or themes and licenses you weren't particularly keen on working on.
It was difficult to work with the combination of Lucasfilm and Disney later, because right in the middle of the Star Wars game, they purchased Lucasfilm. So
that's right. Yeah.
I ended up, running. We all did. We all ended up, waiting a long time for approvals, and there were, 27 different art, panes. I'll say. 3 fronts of the cabinet, 3 sets of sides. That's a total of 6 sides of the cabinet, and another 6 of the back box, and 3 back glasses, 2 plastic sets, and 2 play fields. So it's a lot of stuff. Anyway, it just took a long time. I'm not upset about how it came out. It turned out okay. It was kind of grief, a kind of.
I'm sure it was, but you've also had some licenses. I mean, it was obviously Star Wars and anything related to that is almost a classic pinball license now, because there have been so many Star Wars based games. But you've also had to deal with other less obvious or less suitable licenses and themes for games like poker, for instance.
Yeah, poker.
Texas Hold'em in particular, and that must have been a tough one to turn into a game.
It was. Gary and Michael Donald brought me into an office, and they said, "We want you to do, a poker game." And I go, "I can't believe you're asking me that. We haven't had a poker game or any kind of card game for 30 years. And it's like, there's a good reason. And I just didn't understand how they could want it so bad. But they said, "We have a great license, World Poker Tour." I said, "I really don't want to do it because I don't think it'll be successful." And they said, "We want you to do it or you're not going to work here." Okay.
That's tough.
I did it. And, looking back, Keith Johnson did a great job, and I'm not ashamed of the playfield at all. I mean, it's got everything but the kitchen sink on it, and it plays nice. It's fun. It's just that, I think we made like 1,500 of those games. It just wasn't a good seller. And you could play poker on it. I mean, you really could. I would say Keith included every nuance of Texas Hold'em poker. Even the name of the cards, that they used.
Yeah. Did you think you'd get away with putting that many drop targets in the game?
No one stopped me, and so I did it. I did it because, there was a lot of cards there, and we could make hands out of them, and that was the coolest thing. Yeah. I also like playing up on the top playfield. The ace in the hole unit and the thing that captures the ball. That's fun. And, it was a loser theme, though. And I think after that, they thought, maybe the designers should like what they're doing as they work on a game. And if I can't believe that it's going to be a big hit, it's just, I have to believe that from the very beginning. I have to, because that's what I want. I want that. I want a game to be great. And if it isn't, it doesn't sell. I mean, I'm disappointed when that happens.
Tapping into that, obviously, when you started in the business, games had original themes. At Williams, later on, licenses were introduced. At this point, would you still have the same pleasure in working on a non-licensed game than on a licensed game where you really like the property?
It's great to have like Black Knight Sword of Rage. That game it's kind of a license, but not really. I didn't have to get approvals from anyone. Like Matt Cristiano and Rick are my friends at Planetary Pinball, and they had the license, and so we just got along, and It turned out very well. Anyway, what is it? I myself do not. I think a pinball machine needs a license these days to connect, because people have favorite movies, favorite bands. They just have. It's not just about movies and bands, but that's most of them. It's good to have that to connect with. I have one coming up that I can't wait to get started on, but it's going to be a while.
Do you think that with modern games requiring so much in the way of multimedia, video, audio, music, that creating an unlicensed game is just not practical? You need all those assets to be provided, or at least some of them to be provided to you, to get the story and to give you video clips and sound calls and music tracks in order to build the game.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, all that stuff is available usually when we get a license, and it is good. It makes it a little easier on the team. If we can't get stuff, then we have to make stuff up. The artwork on Black Knight, for instance, I love it. It's great. It was done by a great team of people,
but a large team of people.
But they also like the freedom. They like the freedom. I didn't create those characters; they did. And so I don't know. That part's beautiful. We had good music. Some people thought it was like unrelenting. There's an alternate set of tunes in the game, though, that very few people know about, but you can play it. It's a little more mellow. But myself, I like all the adrenaline that music produces. I just do when I play the game.
Well, that does just bring us on, I guess, to the question of the Led Zeppelin game, because we're talking about great music and lots of assets, and exactly how that turned out. And I think it's no secret that you weren't entirely happy with the way the process went in making that game and getting what you wanted into it. Can you tell us anything about that?
Yeah, kind of depressing. I chose a bunch of songs, and some other people grabbed a couple songs and traded them out. And the two I wanted to get on the game were Heartbreaker and Stairway to Heaven, and they just wouldn't give them to me. And I could not imagine, I don't think anybody could imagine a Led Zeppelin game without Stairway to Heaven. I don't even know how I would have played it, but I had a Stairway to Heaven mechanism in mind, and I wanted to build that, and I was not allowed to, and I just, it's a big cloud hanging over the game. We did the best we could with it, but I just, I was disappointed that they didn't get the rest of the license, and that's not going to be a problem here. When Jersey Jack gets a license, it is incredibly complete, or we don't do it. That's it.
Were you a big fan of Led Zeppelin going into the design process?
Of course, I loved it. Everybody wanted it for years and years. I wanted it, while I was at Atari, okay, that long ago. I saw Led Zeppelin like 3 times in my life. One time from the second row at the Berkeley Community Theater. It was just, they're an incredible band. They changed music forever in kind of a, you know the history. You're not as old as me, but nearly. Anyway, yeah, I wanted it badly, and I wanted to make it, the way a game should be made.
It was no secret that John Borg wanted to do a Led Zeppelin game for a very long time. And when Stern goes after the license, then you get it. Did that create any tension, or was it okay with everybody?
I don't know. John showed no disappointment. One of us was going to get it. Like I said, every designer would have loved to have that license. Persons of, let's say, my age or nearly, John Borg did Rush recently, and it's like, music is nice. I remember them too. It's just I don't know if he was angry or not, but he got mine, which was
Turtles?
No, no, I've never do turtles. Well, unless somebody said, "Okay, we're going to fire you if you don't do it," then I might do it. Okay, it would be hard for me to get my heart into that. Anyway, the Guardians of the Galaxy. I asked for that, so he got that. I got Led Zeppelin.
Are you glad that you got Led Zeppelin and he got Guardians?
I guess. I mean, really not in the way that we, not in terms of assets. I don't think either of us got a lot of assets from either title. It was, I don't know.
So would you say then that your experience of doing Led Zeppelin and the disappointment that you had with that was like the straw that broke the camel's back, and you decided that now was the time to make a move?
Well, yeah. I mean, I was saying to myself, no Stairway to Heaven, no Stern, no Steve. Bye. But I didn't leave right then. I had an obligation to develop another game, so I left them 2 Whitewoods, a Pro and a Premium LE. Right.
And do you know what's happening to that game which you left behind? I guess you can't really talk about the license attached to it.
I have no idea. I have no idea what's going on there with it. Not a word.
Okay. Now let's go back to something I was talking about a little earlier, which was first of all, Spider-Man, and of course then AC/DC, and those were hugely successful games, which probably saved the company. And they were amazing collaborations between yourself and Lyman Sheets. Can you give us a little sort of insight into the process that you go through or went through when you were working with those on those games with Lyman, and the sort of relationship that the two of you had?
Yeah, I mean, we had a great relationship. He was a good friend of mine, and it's sad what happened. I miss him very much. A lot of people do, and he made some great stuff. And I would say he's probably the most. I think people like his rules, and you'll see other programmers incorporating them in games. He created some stuff very groundbreaking, and it's been used since then by other games and programs and programmers. I'm sorry. He's made a mark that's incredible. Anyway, with AC/DC, we had, like I said, everything we wanted, and so we built the game with, I don't know, with passion. That's it. Nothing was holding us back, and it was great. And in between, I really think that the reason that big building of Stern over there exists is because of 3 games, really. I think it was AC/DC, and Star Trek, and Metallica. Those 3 games made it possible for them to advance.
You're now working at Jersey Jack with new programmers. Are you trying to create that same interaction that you had with Lyman, also with them, to get to the game that you want it to be?
Absolutely. It's it's fun. I am, like I said, I'm talking with 3 programmers. One programmer will be the lead programmer, and he is a gifted guy with tools and, rules, not tools. He's good with tools too, though. He's developed a very nice graphic equalizer. It's a cool advance. Yes, I'm very happy to work with him. I knew the other guys too. JT was a guy I didn't know. Duncan Brown is one of the programmers, and we're all friends. He's sort of a pinball historian, and an outrageously good programmer. And Bill Grupp, also a great programmer, and we've been friends for years. Worked together at Williams, maybe not on the same games. I don't have Keith. Keith is working with someone else, and so that's okay. But I called him in, let him look at my game, tell me what he thinks. I like this. I like all of that. But people with a lot of pinball experience are going to give me better information than someone who doesn't know what they're playing or looking at. You know what I mean? Okay. I mean, everybody here knows what they're looking at as far as pinball goes, but about designing one, maybe not.
When you started in the industry, it was very common that games would be put on test. So you could see how they performed, what the earnings were, but also if there were any issues when they were being played in the wild. I think it was probably with World Poker Tour, that was probably the last game that went on test, and after that games weren't put out on test anymore. Is that something you'd like to get back to put games in the wild and see how they perform when other people play them, or do you miss it?
Okay, that situation is not true at all here. We have games out on test, and they choose a couple of locations that we can go visit and see what's going on, and they're in contact with us, telling us if anything is wrong, and I'm going to use those locations for my game also. So I'm glad to see that. Stern didn't do too much of that, in the later years. So yeah, we're testing because it's a good thing to do. Also, life testing. We make a device, we stick it on a rack, power it up, and make it just repeat its action over and over and over again until it breaks, or till we find out that it's going to be, a strong device that'll work over a long period of time and many cycles. I like 1 million cycles on things that I make. Like the Dragon for Game of Thrones. It's, for all I know, it's still on test in the game room there, just flapping its wings like this, and Black Knight heads that are doing this, and the lights are going and all this. They're probably still there. I don't know, though. I haven't been there in, 8 months or 7 months.
And picking up a point that Jonathan just made, when you started, the industry was very much more about how much a game would earn on location. Now it seems to be a lot more focused on home sales, and earnings are less important. Is that something which influences your design decisions when creating a game?
I'm always going to look at earnings when we put them out on test. You have to. There is less of that, no doubt, because enthusiast purchases, if they want a theme, they'll just buy it, and I don't know how they could make a decision like that, but they do. And, I'm grateful because the pinball business is doing extremely well right now. But you always have to wonder, how long will this last? How long will it last? Because pinball has been like this over the years.
It has, but you've been there a long time, and you're not the only one, of course. When you joined Jersey Jack Pinball, Pat Lawler was there to meet you and greet you as you came into the building for the first time. How is it working in the same building and for the same company as Pat after all these years? Because you were obviously back at Williams, and you were both working as contractors at Stern for a while. So yes, your paths cross a lot.
We're getting along great. We have fun just talking. We're like the two geezers of the pinball world in this building, and I think we are the oldest people in the whole company, but we have a wealth of experience, and Pat's done a great job making things happen here. It's the playfield line between him and Bill Grupp and Michael J. Fox looks a lot like Williams, and it's way more flexible than any line I've ever seen before. It's so great because at any point on the line, you can flip the playfield upside down because they're all on rotisseries from the very beginning. You can rotate them, move it around so the part you need to put on is easier to get to. And they can be slid down the rollers, and it's ideal for catching a mistake, for instance, and then you can just back up, flip them all over, and fix them in mass if there's a problem with somebody not doing something right. Anyway, Pat's been pretty helpful to me too. I'm not gonna, we're getting along. It's great. I think much better than people thought. Well, we're both older. We're not in competition really. It's just fun to talk about the old days, and he reminds me of things that I forgot, and I remind him of things that he forgot. And so, I don't know. It's been interesting. He lives right next door, right over there.
Right.
Eric is over there.
And when you joined JJP, was it important that you were reporting directly to Leonard?
Yeah. It's like I want to know what he wants from me, and I do. It's very clear, and I'm going to deliver a good product and for him, and I just for the company. I want the company to succeed, and I'm going to do everything I can to make it succeed.
Which brings me to the question: how do you see the future of pinball? You just indicated it sort of goes in a wave up and down all the time. But
you guys have been alive during these periods.
Right.
You've seen it happen, and it's like, I think it's super strong right now for everybody in the business. All companies are selling pinball machines and that make them, and I'm a little gun shy because of the past. I just wonder how long. I'm not indicating that it's going to, drop. The sales are going to go away one day. I am not predicting that. I don't even want to think about that. It's been really great, and I hope it continues to be.
Does it surprise you how popular pinball is now, given the huge number of different types of entertainment available, both in the home and out of the home? That pinball has come back and become so popular both on location and for home purchase.
It has, and it's amazing. The enthusiast market and collectors it seems to be endless. They all want new games. I think pinball machines also have become like a status symbol, at least in the United States. You have one or two, and or maybe a whole game room full, and I think that's part of what drives it. I think another part is the pandemic. People wanted pinball machines to play. They wanted to simulate being at an arcade or, just playing in competition. And I don't know. I think we sold a lot of games because people were bored at home. But that number of games is not coming down, even though the pandemic is mostly over here. I don't know how it is in Europe, but
with the game that you're designing there at Jersey Jack, I'm guessing there are quite a few games in front of that waiting to be produced. How does that give you a sort of a freedom, not having a big time pressure on to keep the line rolling? Or
I have time pressure, and there's only one game ahead of me, so it's like things are going to pick up and start moving faster here because we have to. We want to, get the best factory yield we can, and this is an opportunity to do that, to sell maximum amount of games.
In terms of design, do you think we've seen the limits that we can put on pinball in terms of what you can put inside a cabinet, or do you think that there will be some creative mind that comes up with a way to put pinball in a different type of cabinet, and all of a sudden a whole new array of options becomes available?
I think it is limitless. I have some new devices never before seen on this game, and I'm excited about them. There'll be more probably, but it's I'll know when I get my whitewood working. I do not see limitations with anything, as long as we are creative and thinking about, with me, it's how the ball moves. That's the most important thing, how it feels to make a shot. I look for satisfaction. I want to feel like I did something good, and I want the game to respond smoothly, and and I want it to be rowdy. I want it to be a mechanical action pinball machine. I want great music. I want a lot of stuff, great artwork, and I think we're going to achieve that here.
And I have to ask, do you intend to keep designing games forever, or do you see? Could you imagine, for instance, that you would be in charge of game design at Jersey Jack Pinball and would have a more managerial role rather than actual game designing games yourself?
I don't see that. I see myself designing games because I really enjoy it. It's a passion, and that's how it is. I could retire, but I don't want to. I think it's good to have a job to go to every day. One of my good friends, Larry DeMar, I spoke to him on the phone yesterday. It was kind of breakthrough, but I had brand new hearing aids on that pumped the phone directly into I haven't heard his voice in a long time. So I talked to him for a while, found out that, he retired, he sold his company, but he didn't retire. He's working again because he can't sit still. It's not healthy to sit still, just not.
We look forward to seeing much more Steve Ritchie designs come into production and on location and into people's homes, of course. I think we're about to round this up unless Martin has some more questions he would like to ask.
No, I was just just on a sort of fairly random basis. I was just going to ask if you miss the California weather. Now you're living in Chicago, and could you ever see yourself retiring to back to California again?
I could, but I don't really know if it's a real thing. I mean, the weather here sucks. It just does. And I would like to go back to California, but there's no pinball there. Pinball is all right here. We're back to 3 companies in the Chicagoland area, and it's it's
a great thing.
Yes, it's a great thing, and I'm not gonna, I don't want to rock the boat. I want to make pinball machines.
You mentioned 3 pinball companies in the Chicagoland area.
Yes.
Obviously, there are smaller companies outside the Chicagoland area also building pinball machines.
Yes.
Do you look at the competition? Do you play their games? Do you? What do you think of them? Do you think that, or they should have done this, or they should have improved that this way, or how do you look at those games?
Well, coming back from the Texas Pinball Festival, I definitely enjoyed playing Ultraman. It took me 2 games to get to the upper level, but it was fun and interesting. I don't have, I have no idea what it sounds like. It was just so loud there, and I'm wearing hearing aids and amplifying this din, D-I-N. You know that word, right? Okay, so it's just that's what it sounds like when I'm playing a pinball machine. Anyway, I enjoyed that game. I enjoyed Aliens. Pretty nice. The only thing I think is strange about it is you can have the dark one where you can't see the ball, but if you pay a little more, you can see the ball. That's interesting. But, I managed to play it, the dark one and the lit one. And it's a decent game, no doubt. I like their video footage, and, it's interesting. That's it. They are competition, but I don't know if they're building as many games a day as we are, or Stern is, or even American Pinball. I don't know.
I suppose this rounds it up.
Yeah, I think so. Thank you very much indeed, Steve. I think that was great.
It was great to talk to you guys. I had a good time. So I look forward to doing it in the future.
And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, indeed.
Steve Ritchie, legendary pinball designer.
Fantastic. Thank you, Steve, for taking the time out to speak to us at long last. I'm glad we had that perspective of time from his experience of working at JGP, and obviously an awful lot of excitement in the game that he's working on at the moment, and the other games he will be developing into the future.
Right. Yeah, and I'm really happy to hear that he is currently in a very good spot and very happy, or at the best place that he worked so far. So good for him. Absolutely.
So thanks again, Steve, and we hope you enjoyed this special bonus podcast, our interview with Steve. And we will be back as usual at the beginning of next month with our regular pinball industry news PINcast.
Right, which is a recap of the pinball news of the previous month, which would be, in this case, April. And while we're at it, let me also remind you that both Martin and I have our respective websites. For Martin, that is pinballnews.com, where you find the latest pinball news, as the title might suggest. And as editor of Pinball Magazine, I'd like you to visit pinball-magazine.com, and
And also sign up for your very informative monthly newsletter.
Yes, which is completely free and usually goes out after we recorded our podcast, and includes a link to our PINcast, I should say. And well, if you'd be interested in receiving that free on a monthly basis, no spam or whatsoever, just one email a month with the recap of the pinball industry news of the previous month, then go to pinball-magazine.com.
And as I say, we'll be back at the beginning of May to look back on the month of April, and there'll be a lot of exciting news, I think, coming up this month. So don't miss that. And thank you again for listening to this bonus podcast with our interview with Steve. So until we speak again, this is Martin, and I'll wish you a very happy rest of the month.
And this is Jonathan, and I wish you the same.